WNST, Tampa area certainly looked like a beautiful afternoon for football. For many of you, you know it was one of the first games I've ever skipped in the regular season, certainly not with my wife's cancer bouts notwithstanding. We just sort of took a little bit of an emotional bye weekend. We have a new feline in our life that we adopted on Sunday before the game, and then watched the Ravens beat up on the Oakland Raiders in an unlikely outcome. This guy has been a friend of ours for a number of years, covering the San Diego Chargers down in San Diego. They are no more. He has moved north up to Oakland as a free agent. He's covering all things Raiders for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, but he's living in the Oakland area. He is Michael Gehlken, one of our defending champions around here. You can find him at Gehlken, GEHLKENNFL, as well as at ReviewJournal.com. Mike, man, I know I missed a pretty momentous afternoon for the Ravens. I know the Raiders couldn't get out of their own way, but it's a hell of an effort by the Ravens on Sunday, I thought, out there.
Yeah, no, the Ravens look sharp. You know, when you jump on a team, I don't care what team you are or who you're going up against, but you jump on a team 14-0 in the first 4 minutes of the game, that's a tough hole for any team to climb out of. And certainly the Raiders, without Derek Carr, playing with E.J. Manuel, and still lots of issues that this team is trying to figure out offensively and defensively, that hole proved to be insurmountable.
Well, look, we'll get to the Ravens side of this and the surprise for all of us of the offensive line. I don't think it's a surprise that they had a strip and it turned into 6 points. I mean, but that is the formula for the Ravens. If you were going to write a script, is, run the ball, go down the field, have it explosive, take the ball away, and then, sit on the ball as best you can and try to play some defense against a second-string quarterback. From the Raiders' perspective, the whole second-string quarterback thing, talk about hamstrung and problems and where Jack Del Rio is at 2-3 with the franchise. There were just a lot of things about the Raiders that didn't look good on Sunday, man.
No, and honestly, I think you could argue that this team, and who's to say, it's hard to say it, but I think even if Derek Carr was healthy, I'm not sure the Raiders are sitting here on Monday 3-2 instead of where they are 2-3. I don't know if simply Derek Carr being healthy would have totally changed the game. And I say that because E.J. Manuel was solid. Certainly wasn't able to do enough to carry the team back, but you saw him extend plays with his legs. You saw him make some accurate throws, show some poise. He only completed about half his passes. Not to say that Derek Carr wouldn't have done better, but I think when the Raiders look back at this game, they don't say, oh, boy, E.J. Manuel cost us this one, or boy, Derek's situation cost us this one. It's more complex than that.
Well, certainly the complexity begins with the running game, especially with a backup quarterback that they're finding to be tough sledding. They spent a lot of money on that O-line, and more than that, dude, Marshawn Lynch looks washed up to me. I don't know what your eyes say.
I wouldn't go that far. I think he doesn't look comfortable at times behind this offensive line or the scheme, whatever it may be. I remember coming out of halftime on second down, the Raiders run a shotgun draw, and Marshawn just gets stuffed behind the line of scrimmage. There's plays like that where you just look, man, this thing isn't really happening. But then there are other plays where he's still, as one Ravens player told me after the game, he's still a load to bring down. There's certain plays on Sunday where it took a whole community just to get him stopped, and I won't even say to the ground, because there's one where he's being game tackled and the ref's whistles are what stopped it because he wasn't making progress, but it wasn't exactly being brought to the ground either.
But he's never going to run away from anybody with one stiff arm, beat a safety, and have cornerbacks that can't catch him. That part's over with, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, he's part of a backfield, and he is 31 years old, and however healthy he is, he's a 31-year-old back who's gone through a lot, and he's a physical guy. He does what he does. I think when the Raiders have their running game at its best, they're mixing in Jalen Richard, they're mixing in DeAndre Washington, who had to miss the game with a hamstring injury. It's a true backfield by committee, and I think what Marshawn is able to give them in terms of that thumping presence is still pretty unique and is still carries some value for this offense.
You wrote a lot about Raider frustration in the aftermath of all of this. Just some thoughts about what the most frustrating parts for Jack are this year. I mean, other than having to play with your backup quarterback, which is frustrating enough, but they have enough starters out there. They have enough players. I know the secondary was depleted, and it certainly didn't take Flacco long in the framework of this offense to at least try an explosive play. And quite frankly, Mike, we haven't seen that around here the last couple of weeks.
Right. I think probably the most frustrating aspect for Jack Del Rio, other than simply losing, he expected more, I'm sure, from the offense than the team has been able to get thus far. And you look at before this game against the Ravens, the Raiders failed to score more than 10 points in consecutive weeks, which is something that they hadn't done before in terms of 2 games with, not more than 10 points in a row, since 2009. And so that was not something that the Raiders anticipated. They thought, okay, we're going to have games where, yes, Sean Smith is going to struggle in man coverage against Mike Wallace, that type of speedy wide receiver, and, Reggie Nelson being late on a 54-yarder. Those are the type of things that, while they didn't want to give up those explosive plays, it was a point of emphasis in training camp, and they knew it was something they needed to prove in the regular season that they could do. But the constant that everybody expected was this offense to get going, and Amari Cooper to have more than the 4 catches for 23 yards or whatever it is these past 3 weeks. I mean, it's been abysmal what the Raiders have gotten for a lot of key areas on offense. And right guard Gabe Jackson, they gave him a lot of money this offseason. He was not able to suit up because of a foot injury. It just seems like things are starting to fall apart a little bit. A strength the Raiders thought anyway would be a strength has turned into a bit of a liability here thus far.
Remember the last time I had you on, it was maybe like back in June when they finally shut down the Chargers camp and you were headed to Oakland, and obviously the Chargers moving has changed the trajectory of your career and your life, and we talked about that at length the last time we visited. And now you wind up in Oakland covering this team that's lame duck, that's supposed to be leaving, is going to be leaving, but supposed to be very good. Part of the promise there of Marshawn Lynch and bringing the homeboy in and all that is they were going to win the Super Bowl this year. They had a real chance to do that, a real belief that that was going to happen. Boy, things are changing around there. I mean, fans are throwing stuff at Donald Penn's car. He's caught on video, tense times, and obviously your old Chargers are coming in this week as well, and the Chiefs on short schedule next week. This thing could boil over, and they're going from contender to maybe out of this thing if they can't right this ship in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a little, frankly, unnerving as a Las Vegas reporter when you see it happening, because things turn ugly around here. And then all of a sudden, it's less about, the Raiders win the championship while they're still in town, and it's more about a team that's dead in the water and fixing to move in a few years, and, just the vibe and energy surrounding the team and the city and how it views the team and all that can change. Winning does a lot for organization. I think so far, at least going into the season, it wasn't the type of situation that felt toxic, despite the Raiders' impending relocation, despite certainly people in Oakland who were done with the Raiders because of that certainty, because of that future move. A lot of people weren't done. A lot of people were still engaged. A lot of people still going to games. And shoot, Sunday's game was a sellout. So they're still having nearly 55,000 people at the games, and at times an electric crowd. But if they continue to lose, and suddenly such promising season becomes a lost one for a team that's about to move in a few years, I think things are just going to change. I think the ugliness that you saw in the parking lot with the in Donald Penn, it's an unfortunate situation for him. He won't. If indeed, and I wasn't there, but something being thrown at his car, he gets out, and then he responds verbally with a fan and bunch of fans actually, and it's being recorded and it puts on the. I mean, it's just the type of thing that becomes exacerbated when you're a franchise that's about to move. Having that kind of public argument, public spat with a fan, it's not going to help if the Raiders keep losing games.
He is Michael Gehlken. He covers all things NFL as well as the Oakland Raiders for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Formerly down there in San Diego, running around with the now Los Angeles Chargers and the Los Angeles Chargers and the Raiders getting together here. For this whole mess of the moving the team and all that stuff, Do you have a belief that the Raiders can turn this around, or do you really feel like there's a circling of the drain going on here? It certainly felt that way to me on Sunday. I mean, it felt like they fell and couldn't get up, and they look like a shell of that team that I addressed about this time last year when they were winning football games, smacking the Broncos around, and really were thinking they were going to be on a January run before David Carr got injured.
Right, and I think the defense is a real concern. I think it was going into the season. It's part of the reason why I remember standing there in training camp, and this team's coming off a 12-4 season, and you take a look at how they won 12 games. They were 5-0 in games decided by 3 points or fewer. They were 9-2 in one-score games. That's hard to replicate, and with the defense. They didn't do much there, really anything there in free agency, and that was a question mark going in. And now you combine that with an offense that is faltering, an offense that was supposed to be the very best in the league, that looked that way in the first 2 weeks of the season, but really has come undone. I think it's fair to wonder how soon the Raiders can turn this around offensively, and if that's the case in this division, where they're already 3 games back of the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, you start talking about wild card. This next game, they're going against the Chargers, who played them tough. That was part of their success last year in those close games. Came against the Chargers, a pair of 3-point wins. And then the next game is on a short week. There's a Thursday night game against the Chiefs here in Oakland. I mean, if the Raiders lose both, if they drop both, which is conceivable, if their offense can't turn this around, you're talking about a 2-5 football team that's at least 4 games back of the Kansas City Chiefs. And then they're not going to be playing in Oakland for more than a month, not until late November. They play in Buffalo, they play in Miami, they have a bye week, they travel to New England, or they travel to Mexico City to play New England. It's technically a home game, but it's not really. And then finally they come back and play in Oakland again. I mean, by that point, who knows what this season looks like? So these final 2 games of this homestand against the Chargers and Chiefs are critical to, I think, how this season goes for Oakland.
Michael, shocked by how the Ravens played on Sunday? I mean, I certainly stand as shocked. I mean, I was sitting on the 30-yard line in London 2 weeks ago, and, I did not make the trip because I thought they were going to lose. I literally just was, with my wife, we just didn't feel like doing it this weekend quite. We love San Francisco. We've just been in a little bit of mourning about losing our creature 2 weeks ago, and I just decided, well, this is one of the trips I was going to skip. I did think they were going to lose. Honestly, I thought, well, going across the country, I don't like the way they're playing right now. I could not have even begun to tell you that it was going to work out the way it did in a 30-17 win, but certainly the offensive line just performed differently than anything I'm sure Del Rio even saw on tape.
Yeah, they had a game plan for Khalil Mack, as all teams do. There certainly were some plays where you look like you may have been held and all that, but at the end of the game, you look up, and Khalil Mack did not generate a single pressure, which has been the first time since, I think, Week 17 of the 2014 season that Khalil Mack went a full game without a single quarterback pressure. And Khalil, on the opposite end, Bruce Irvin had 2 pressures, and Mario Edwards had 2 pressures, but the team only had 5 as a group. And so when Khalil Mack isn't coming, he's not able to affect the play, and you've got Mike Wallace running deep and other weapons. I mean, Joe Flacco's good enough. Even though he has been struggling, he's a veteran quarterback who can still, if you give him all day, pick apart a defense. And maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration to see that's exactly what he did, but certainly did enough to position the Ravens to win. Now, I didn't know going into this game that the Ravens would do what they did. I think it was a fascinating game for them, but we had 2 teams that had won their first 2 games and had lost their second 2 games. It's kind of a make or break. Which way is it going to go? Is it the skid going to continue, or are you going to bounce back? And I really think the start with the Jared Cook fumble that Jimmy Smith scooped and returned for 40-plus yards and a touchdown, I think that was really the difference. I think that changed the whole game with that 14-0 start.
He is Michael Gelkin. He covers all things Raiders out in Las Vegas, but he's in Oakland. You can follow him at Gelkin NFL. That's GEHLKEN NFL. And, I would be remiss if I did not bring up that it's Chargers week for you. How many years on the beat for the Chargers with you?
7.
7. Dude, the cluster, and you and I have been talking about this for years, and of my family's time out there, and how much time I spent in San Diego, and how brokenhearted I was even to change a plane out there 5 months ago, and still seeing Charger stuff sold in the airport for a franchise that ain't ever coming back. What a cluster this has been. Far worse than even I thought it was going to be, and I thought it was going to be kind of bad, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, just about everything's been botched from an organization standpoint. Their marketing campaign has been a disaster. Be it the logo, the Fight for LA theme that already has been removed from the team website. They go 0-4 to start their season. Lots of home games that feel like road games, even if it's a team like the Eagles or the Dolphins. Teams are traveling, and it doesn't feel like home in their quote-unquote intimate soccer stadium. And then even on Sunday, the team finally wins its game, and afterward you have the team, and it seems like a small thing, but I think it's indicative of just how these guys can't get out of their own way. They post a coupon on their official Twitter account, the Chargers do, that 20% off. I believe it's a team store, 20% off of whatever it is, and the coupon has already expired in late September because apparently they were planning this advertisement or campaign, whatever, after the first win of the season. They just didn't think it would take this long. So by the time they actually won their first game, the coupon had expired, and they're still pushing it to their fans. It's just like little small details on this whole move and trying to get Los Angeles to love them, and just they're a total fish out of water. And so many people saw it coming, but yet they moved. It's just sad. It's sad for San Diego. You feel sad for the people in the organization for whom it was really out of their control. You feel for Phillip Rivers, even though he did sign that contract extension to a certain degree. He knew what he was getting into, but still, for his career, very well possibly to be ending in that soccer setting. Hopefully for those guys' sake, they can find some success, because just how you have a Raiders team that if it doesn't turn around quickly, it's going to get uglier and uglier, and the temperature is going to rise and rise with the relocation aspect of it. For the Chargers, talk about irrelevancy. I don't know, when you consider how little the people of Los Angeles care about that team, and what that stadium is like when the team is actually playing in its home venue.
Dude, were they this vapid the whole time? Literally, did they really just think they were going to show up and 65,000 people were going to throw $200 a week at that? I just find it to be kind of unthinkable. It's kind of like watching this car crash that we all saw coming. I saw it from 3,000 miles away, and I guess there's such dripping with arrogance, these wealthy men in the league, as we're finding out now with Jerry Jones demanding his players. The Players Association, there's going to be hell to pay on the whole political side of all of this. But then you see these sort of the macro, the decision-making, made at the league level that everybody checked. The whole league checked off on this disgrace, honestly, right?
Yeah, it's a little surprising. And this isn't 2020 hindsight. This is, I remember when the Chargers moved, and you look at it, and you know what that franchise meant to San Diego, and you know how little LA, wanted the Chargers by so many measures. You just looked at it and thought, man, NFL waited 2 decades to return to the LA market because the officials would say they wanted to get it right. It wasn't about getting to LA promptly. It was about doing it correctly. And even at the time, you look at it, the Rams are there, the Chargers are there, and the Raiders, frankly, aren't there. You just wonder, did the NFL really get this right? Is this really going to work? How can this work? Certainly, as it went with the Chargers, and in part because the team lost, 4 straight games to start. That doesn't help. But even if they were 5-0, I don't know if, I'm pretty darn sure we're not talking about the LA Chargers as being like this swimming success. I really don't. I still think LA doesn't care. I don't think the city's built that way from a fan base standpoint. I was about to say, this is, you got hard pressed to find a more irrelevant team in American major sports than the Chargers are in their home market.
Michael Gelkin covering all things Raiders after covering the Chargers for a long time. He'll be covering the Chargers all over again this week because the Raiders and the Chargers are getting together. He's doing it for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. You should follow him. Tens of thousands do at reviewjournal.com as well as at Gelkin, Gehlken, NFL. Dude, always a pleasure. Sorry I didn't catch up with you over in the East Bay on Sunday. I used the mulligan for the first time in 22 years. I'm not going to apologize. We have a new cat that we adopted on Sunday, so all is well, but we did not name her Raider, just so you know, although it was a nice first victory of her Ravens career with us. Hey, man, I hope to catch up with you again soon. Hope to see you at the Super Bowl or somewhere down the line, and tell Jack I'm thinking of him. Tough times are ahead out there, man.
Absolutely, my pleasure, and I don't think when tomorrow you're going to wake up and you're going to be 70, I don't think you're going to look back and think, man, I wish I went to that Raiders-Ravens game. I think you made the good call staying home.
Well, the sad part for me is I feel like at some point, I'm not going to be able to go to the black hole and ever see a football game again. So there was sort of that part of it where I'm like, this might be my last trip. But I just couldn't do it this weekend. I can't explain it. I just called an audible, and I'm like, you know what? I just need to stay home this weekend. And good things happen. They win without me on the West Coast. It's fine. But, hey, I was there when they won the AFC Championship game 16 years ago, and I pointed that out to Billick. So I'm in no way a bad luck charm. So great to have you on, man. Good luck with the Raiders the rest of the way. We'll be watching.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Beware those Chiefs, Michael Gelkin. He is Gelkin NFL at Las Vegas Review-Journal as well. Why can't I speak? What the hell's going on here? The Buy a Toyota Audio Vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Guaranteed. And they got the lunk alarm. It's judgment-free there, which makes a beautiful thing. We could all use a little bit more judgment-free, to be honest with you. Last but never least, we don't judge the news. We just break it and get it to you first. It is our breaking news tech service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. For the 10,000 of you on it, you know how good it is. It's all brought to you, of course, by Dennis and his group over at Coons Ford. Dennis will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. That's a Sunday Sports Voice, now heard from 3 until 5, giving me a break, giving you a break, but I'll be joining the show on Thursday to talk all things Bears. It's my birthday this week. I'm going into the Dundalk Hall of Fame next week. Next week's going to be Dundalk Appreciation Week around here, so get ready for that because they're only putting me into one Hall of Fame, and it's the Dundalk High Hall of Fame, and I will be singing the alma mater at some point next week. We did get to the state finals 2 years ago, and Jake Funk screwed it all up for us. Damascus, Maryland. Never forget that one. Last but never least, you can find me anywhere the internet goes. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And if you want to see our beautiful new feline Nayla, you can find her out on our Facebook as well. We're having a lot of fun with our new cat. Big thanks to our friends at Be More Humane. I'll be thanking them all week as well. So I got a soft heart. What can I say? When people say, who are you? I say, I used to be Nasty Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore sports.